Good morning, greetings everybody. Greetings Atlantic Canada. We're delighted that you could join us today and to learn all about website localization, how that can help your companies grow internationally, and what on earth it is. What is website localization? So this is the first of some webinars we're going to be hosting to help Atlantic Canada companies with their exports and using online virtual tools to grow their businesses, to grow their exports internationally. So before we get started, I'm just going to sort of introduce ourselves as who we are today on the webinar. So just while you're all still logging in. So my name is Susanna Hardy, and I am Chief Content Officer with IBT Online. I'm delighted to be here today. So I'm Chief Content Officer. That means I get involved in everything that is involved with from SEO, content, to keywords, to search engine optimization, to videos, and everything else. So I'm delighted with that. We are also joined today by Erin Smith, the Program Manager of the CBDCs. And I'm also delighted that she's here with us today. And Erin will join us, and she has a lot to say about the helping hand and the resources that are there available for the Atlantic Canadian companies. A very quick word on us as a company before we actually start on the full webinar. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with my mouse today. Here we go. So just us as a company. IBT Online. IBT stands for International Business and Technologies. We're actually a US company, but really delighted to be working with Canadian companies, helping them grow internationally. So we've been around for quite a long time, and we are 100% focused on small and mid-cap companies and helping small and mid-cap companies drive their business internationally. So we are delighted to be working with the Atlantic provinces to help companies and to as part of that to do these webinars today. So we thought we'd divide today's presentation up into sort of 5 big segments, starting out with Erin talking a little bit about what I call a helping hand for Atlantic Canadian companies. Sort of what are some of the resources that Erin and her colleagues across the provinces and at the federal level can help you with. Then we're going to talk about why we think Atlantic Canadian companies need online business development tools. And then we're going to talk more in detail about what those business development tools are. What are localized websites? How do they work? What makes a good one? How can it help your company? So how can you use those localized websites? And then finally, just some takeaways, next steps, and if you've got any questions. This is part of a series of webinars that we are hosting with the Atlantic Canada colleagues, and specifically dedicated to Atlantic Canada companies. It's part of a series of 9 webinars all about online business development tools. Before I start, then let's get Erin to talk a little bit. Oh no. I'm going to talk first about what we have in terms of a helping hand for Atlantic Canada. So at IBT, we actually started our own little page just for the Atlantic Canada region, for the provinces, to talk about and centralize our resources for there. So anytime you're looking for what's the next webinar, or what webinar recordings, or how to get in touch, you can always find our website in there. So we were really impressed with how the provinces came together, the different provinces came together to offer these and think holistically about how they could help the Atlantic Canadian companies. And indeed, even at they joined in and were sort of bonded at the federal level with ACOA as well, joining in. So the Atlantic Canada Online Global Program was started with the Nova Scotia Association of Community Business Development Corporations. But these webinars here are really dedicated to Atlantic Canada companies and explaining how your online tools can help. So anytime you're looking for that, you can find our resources on our page. on our website. And with that, a whole list of the webinars coming up. So the next one, for example, is online in Latin America. Then we've got e-commerce, Southeast Asia, international online marketing, online in Europe, online in the USA, online in Japan, online in South Korea. So lots to choose from and lots to see for that. And with that, I think I'm going to turn over to Erin to talk a little bit about the resources from the CBDCs and what they have there. Erin?
Perfect, thanks, Susanna. So hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Erin Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Nova Scotia Association of CBDCs. We're the delivery agent for this project that's hosting the webinars. And the funding support for this project is made possible through the Atlantic Trade and Investment Growth Agreement. So this is a partnership of ACOA and the 4 Atlantic provincial governments. Governments made a priority to help companies to get access to the help that you guys need to export. And in today's environment, digital tools and online selling are a big way to do that. So we're going to provide you at the end with a list of the contacts for all of those government folks from each of the regions that can help you out with other programs, supports, funding. And if you miss that slide or you're not sure who to connect with, you can always reach out to me as well. My contact information is there on the screen, or you can just ask Google, they know where to find me. And I'd be happy to connect you with your local government folks to help you out in exporting. So looking forward to the content, and back to you, Susanna.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you very much indeed. Right then, let's get started. I thought we thought we'd start really with the why. You know, we're just focusing on organic Canadian companies. Why do we think that you need online business development tools? And I guess sort of, you know, starting out with that why, we said there are 4 big reasons that we're seeing at the moment for business priorities, and that was very much highlighted throughout 2020, but still continuing now in 2021. And obviously looking after staff and your employees, managing costs and cash flow, obviously a concern too. And then if you're an exporter especially, you're going to be thinking about existing partnerships, supply chains, and all that. But the consistent message we're getting from all companies, from service companies to manufacturing to agriculture to fish and shellfish companies, is okay, in this times, what's changed and how can I continue to grow my business? How can I continue to generate sales and my exports and really build my brand awareness and so on? And that's really, I think, the message for us was that's where online tools come in. Online tools, particularly your websites, online marketing, hits your top line. It affects your top line of your business. You create websites and you create online business development tools like marketing in order to generate sales, in order to build long-term brand awareness. And so the question of, you know, why you do that is because of your top line. And I think some of the statistics that are worth looking at just very quickly, the headline statistics show how powerful this can be. Now we all spend way too much time probably online, but you're not the only one. In fact, as of October 2020, 4.66 billion of us were online across the world. So that's 60% of the world population online. And most of that time, you know, for those 4.66 billion people, they were spending up to 7 hours a day. So this is not something that's done every now and then. This is something that is, you know, a persistent part of one's daily life. So 7 hours a day for nearly 4.7 billion people. And that was growing strongly throughout 2020. It grew by 7%, 7.5% in 2020. And if you look at the numbers again, it is still growing quite quickly. I mean, you know, I said 7.5% growth in terms of internet users. Social media grew by 12.5%. And that's also a reflection of something else. One of the main things that people are doing online, in fact, is communicating. And this brings us to the point of you know, the primary function of the internet. It has basically 2 primary functions of the internet. The first is information, and the second is communicating that information. So the communication of information, So what better way is there for you to harness this and to build out online tools in order to then communicate and inform the world about your business, communicate with your prospective clients. And I think these huge numbers should be seen as a positive thing for Atlantic Canadian companies. After all, you are, and you know exactly where your clients are. They're all online, and you know how to communicate with them through social media. So these are things to sort of embrace and not shy away from. These are very positive things. And I think that a lot of companies also worry that, you know, social media and all that, it really is, and the websites really are they're not for me, because I'm a manufacturer, or I'm an engineering company, or I'm an agricultural company, and they say, okay, it's not for me. But in fact, you know, if you look at the numbers of B2B, for example, is about, you know, 3 times the size of B2C if you look in terms of the e-commerce. So it really, online really today is for everyone. In the past, you know, when the internet really started, it was for the very, very big companies, Nike, people like that. Today, online is within everybody's grasp. There are online solutions for all sizes of companies, and we urge you to use them. Again, looking at social media strategies, I wanted to highlight this graph here, which just shows, you know, social media channels used for B2B research. You know, YouTube is number 1. You know, Facebook number 2. So, you know, social media is really for everybody, even B2B companies. It's a tremendous way to build brand awareness and connect with your audiences. It's also, as I said, an amazing way, or online tools in general, are an amazing way to sort of level the playing field, to make you, who might be a small or mid-sized company, punch above your weight and really reach out to a global audience for that. So to answer that initial question of why do Atlantic Canadian companies need online business development tools, for us, there are really 3 reasons. It allows you to get found, it allows you to be understood internationally, and to do business internationally. As I think the numbers we've just gone through show you, the world is online. You know exactly where your clients are, your prospects are, your future employees are, your competitors, they're all online. And you can communicate with them online. And then I guess for us as well, but you know, we're an online company, so we would say this, but for us, if anything, 2020 accelerated some of these trends. I'm sure we will all get together again and meet face to face and walk around each other's factories or go to trade shows or whatever. I'm convinced of that. But I think that the online business development tools are only increasing in terms of use by companies. So let's talk a little bit more now about localized websites. That's really the point of today's webinar, really to drill down first about online tools in general, and then say, what are localized websites? What are they, you know, when we look at it? For us, there's, you know, let's make it simple. There's basically 2 kinds of online business development tools. There's your website and there's online marketing. And your website can be tiny, it can be huge, it can be e-commerce enabled, it can look like a brochure, it can have portals and lots of bells and whistles, very simple, whatever style and budget you have. Online marketing has different types and forms of it. Search engine optimization is one form of online marketing. Social media marketing, you know, when reaching out on social media platforms, is another. So, but those are the 2 basic components. And I think when you're thinking about that, when you're structuring your international perspective, I think it's important to sort of say, you know, how do those two work? How do they go together? And for us, if you have a Canadian, you know, your domestic website based in Atlantic provinces somewhere, that can be your home website, and that defines your brand and defines your product, your brand, and you can have international, or you can have online marketing circling that. You can have SEO and social media circling that. That's fine. But let's say you have a real interest and you know you've got potential business in France and Brazil. Well, then those 2 markets deserve their own localized websites. You can't just do it out of your Canadian website. You actually have to create new websites. in France, and Brazil, each one localized for their individual countries so that they are relevant for those countries. And each one having some kind of search engine optimization and social media surrounding that website. So again, there's this sort of, it all links back to your core, your Canadian website. But that's where your brand is. It's important to link them all back and to have brand consistency. But these, they sort of act like their own solar system. You have different ones for different markets. One of the key things that you're going to have to look at when you look at your international markets and international websites is your international buyer persona. And I thought we'd just spend a second on really understanding what a buyer persona is and what an international buyer persona is. Now, I'm sure you all know what your domestic buyer persona is. Who is the person who goes to you to buy from you? Who is your natural buyer? Your international buyer persona could be different from your domestic buyer persona. And if so, you have to ask yourself, in what ways are they different? Perhaps there are multiple buyer personas in your export markets. In some senses, distributors can be buyer personas. And the questions you have to ask yourself are, for example, how does my international buyer persona find me? How do they interact with me? In what way is their buyer's journey different from my domestic buyer's journey? I wanted to highlight an example here of L'Oreal, French company. This screenshot comes from their website in last May 2020, when the U.S. was very concerned, with COVID. It was starting to hit, hair salons, and L'Oreal wanted to show that they were concerned and that they were supportive of their domestic U.S. Stylists and salon partners during COVID-19. So they put that on the side. They said, we are supporting you. But if you looked at the exact same time at, for example, their Australian website, it looked quite different. I mean, you could still see the brand. You knew it was same color schemes, same fonts, all that, same basic layout, different image. That's all. And this was at a time when Australia was suffering those horrible fires. So they really wanted to show that L'Oreal was also thinking about climate. And the L'Oreal Foundation had Women's in Science, and particularly for climate concerns. But if you looked at Brazil at that same time in L'Oreal had a different image because they were concerned about their buyer and connecting with their buyer personas in Brazil, where COVID was beginning to hit the favelas. So they said, hey, Brazil, we are actually making hand gel for you. So again, this was targeting slightly different, all with brand consistency, but slight differences each time for their local buyer persona. So those are kind of things one has to take in mind when you're looking at your international markets. But in each case, whatever it is, no matter what market, no matter what, if it's website or online marketing, it always has to be customer centric. Everything on the web is always customer centric. What that means is that the way the web works, the way the internet works, is that it puts the customer or the searcher at the center of things. So, search engines and all those take the searcher's point of view. And if you're a company, it's your job, particularly if you're in sales and marketing, to sort of try to influence all those little black arrows that go customer to customer and customer to partner and all that stuff, to try and influence them in a positive way and say, hey, I'm here too. Look at me and like me and come and visit my website too. Another way of looking at that and showing that customer-centric way is to look at how search engines work. And this basically explains the reason also why you can't just use your Canadian website to reach your Brazilian audience or your Japanese audience. You actually have to do things a bit differently. All search engines, and Google, I took Google as an example, it's the largest in the world, but all search engines, YouTube is a search engine. All search engines are customer-centric. It means that if you are not relevant for that customer, Google is not going to show that customer your website. So what is relevant for your Japanese prospective buyer or your Californian prospective buyer? Well, you have to tell Google through your website how to be relevant. And there's lots of different ways you do that, technically, but also linguistically. So when you're thinking of websites, so when you think of search engines, for example, Google, don't think of it as a massive one Google. Think of it as lots of different Googles, and you've got to connect with each one for each market. Here's an example of the kind of thing I mean. I have a very noisy dog who always barks during webinars. I happen to be in London at the moment for family reasons. So I go to google.co.uk. That's my Google here in the UK. And I look up squeakless dog toys, and I get barksandbunnies.co.uk, timeforpaws.co.uk. I even get amazon.co.uk. And I asked a colleague of mine in Michigan, he's got a dog too, go to your Google and put squeakless dog toys. So he went to google.com, his Google, and he said squeakless dog toys, and he gets chewy.com, freedompoolharness.com, and even an amazon.com, but different Amazon, different selection from Amazon anyway, same Amazon, different selection from Amazon. You all know this in Canada anyway, because you have google.ca as well as google.com. So you can have those choices. So you see, same language, same search engine, Google, different markets, therefore different relevancies. And that's the kind of thing, if you want to be relevant for the UK market, if you're relevant for google.co.uk. One of the main ways that you become relevant is through keywords and keyword optimization, making sure that you have the right words for each market. Now, here's an example of the word car in Spanish. Okay, let's say that you want to hit the Spanish market, and you're in the car business. You want to hit the Spanish market. Well, then it's really important to use the word coche and not to use the word auto. 91% of people in Spain search with the word coche. So you need to use that word. So this is an example of how the keywords can be really different, really important. So different keywords in each market. You know, this is Google in each case deciding it. You know, Google is Mexico and Google is the search engine in Spain as well. Different keywords, same language, Spain. So that's an example of that. There's quite a fun way also of determining whether your website is actually localized or not, and whether it's relevant. You know, is my website relevant for my market? And here's how you do it. You go onto your Google Analytics and you look at where people are coming from to hit your website. In the slide that you have there, this is a B2B company who wanted an Australian website. And as you can see, the website we built for them is highly relevant. I mean, Google thinks that 90% of the people visiting this site are from Australia. If you include Australia and New Zealand, you get sort of 95%, 98% actually of visitors coming to the website are from those areas. So Google thinks that website is highly relevant for Australia. So that's sort of a neat little way of determining, of judging whether a website is localized. In other words, whether it's relevant for that market. So just grouping together on one slide all the attributes that make up a localized website. The attributes I've listed 10 criteria here. They range from the registered domain name to adapting designs, optimization for the local search engine, hosting optimally. You'll note that language is one criterion out of 10. So language does play a role, but it's not just about translating. It's about building an entire new ecosphere for that website. So now we're going to go and look at some examples of how localized websites are used by companies. How could you use, or how have other companies used localized websites to go internationally? And the examples I take are all of small to mid-cap companies using websites to sort of punch above their weight and pull their sales internationally. So this first example is a company called ASG. They started out with just 2 markets, but they kept building. So we built them a series of little websites, and it was really important to them that how they used the websites was to support distributors in those local markets. And that's something we find is one of the key reasons why companies use websites, localized websites, is to support in-market distributors. in this case, the one that came out most, I guess, spectacularly was the one for China, where they had good agents on the ground, but the agents had difficulties sometimes explaining the technology behind it, showing them all how it worked. And the Chinese prospective buyers sometimes doubted ASG's commitment to the market. With a Chinese website, ASG was able to go to the prospective buyers and say, you see, we are very committed to your market. So committed, we actually have a localized website for you. And the distributor was able to really feel like they have good resources to show their prospective clients. So that allowed them then to really reach out and engage in a much more meaningful way with their prospective buyers. There's quite a lot of testimonials on our website. If you wanted to drill down into any of these case studies that I'm giving you now, if any of them ring true to your particular case, then do check out the testimonials. Another one I wanted to show you was from Bulman Products. Again, a company that has over time just added a market or two or three per year, just to small markets to help their distributors. But again, helping the distributors, but they had a different issue. Their issue was mainly about brand awareness and having control over their distributors and having actually visibility on their end clients, so that Bulman is a company that has lots of different verticals, so lots of different distributors. And it was important for them to have the same resource for all distributors. So all distributors get the same resources, so there's no favoritism in them. It allows them also to judge their distributors better, judge who's doing well and who's not. And then they made a sort of gateway through it in order for them to see their end clients. That has allowed them over time to build a database of actually their end clients and build real brand awareness. And Bulman, as a company, they make paper cutters. Not a lot of brand awareness in paper cutters, but that was the objective. And through the websites, they were able to do that very well. And again, there's some testimony. I wanted to show you the next company here, Herco. They do have that strong local distributors, but for them, their question was maintaining brand control with those distributors. They found that a distributor would show them one way, and then another distributor would display them in a different way. And they were saying, well, those aren't our colors. That's not how we, that doesn't look good. We want to have brand consistency across an entire region. So we built a LATAM website based in Mexico in order to maintain brand control through these various distributors. So that allowed them then to build long-term brand recognition and build up and really have a control over their brand, because they just found that with these multiple distributors, their brand was being sort of diluted and changed and was no longer under their control. So those are some examples of how companies with distributors can do that. Another option as well is just when you start looking at changing your brand and updating your website. And this is something which a lot of people do when they say, I want to go internationally, let me update and improve my website. So this was a good example here. Very much pushed by the 2020 COVID, when suddenly a company that used to have like 80% of their sales coming from trade shows and visiting people's shop floors, suddenly, you're stuck at home and you can't go and visit them. So the only way you can really reach people is through your website. And you suddenly look at your website and go, we need a bit of a rebrand. And so building that new brand and building the new websites and also expanding it to Mexico. That's an example. There's just a bit more of a case study about that from the CEO, just saying, that's why this website localization is so important. The last case study I wanted to show you really was Palladio. Again, this was about brand consistency, and it's a company that does B2B and B2C, and as a makeup company, they're very, very concerned with their look, with the brand guidelines, with the fonts used, everything, and so they wanted real control over their the websites and their online presence. So even if they're in different markets, very, very different markets, from Mexico to Saudi Arabia, there's a consistency of brand, of color, of imagery that they were able to put forward for all of their markets for that. And I guess the last example, just to show you again here, an e-commerce site. This is a company who was selling on sort of major platforms, whether it's an Amazon and so on, and just felt again that it was not able to control its brand consistency and so on, and therefore decided to have its own e-commerce site, which then could link into an Amazon for a logistics partner. And this was the site that they would built for them in Brazil. So turning then to major takeaways and the sort of major takeaways, and if there's any questions, I guess for us, to answer the question, why do Atlantic Canadian companies need online business development tools? For us, as I said, it really allows you to get found globally, get found in the prospective target markets that you want to be understood across markets, and to be understood as a local, to give your local prospective buyer a good, strong local user experience, and then to be able to do business. To do business, you need a certain level of trust in the buyer's journey, and the websites and online marketing allow that trust to build in the buyer's journey. So the online world today is dominant. As I said, 60% of the world is spending 7 hours a day online. So localized websites and online marketing will allow Atlantic Canadian companies to really to grasp that and to really harness the power of the internet and to build websites globally and to go globally. There's a lot of resources dedicated to Atlantic Canadian companies, and I really urge you to take advantage of them. In particular, the current levels of the current series of webinars, for example. If any of these interest you, whether it's about e-commerce or a particular market like Europe or the USA, join in or listen to a recording later. If there's a particular questions that you have and concerns, reach out to Erin, to any of the partners, or to myself. And I've put on this slide the organizations that are all there to help, including Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, Newfoundland, Labrador, and ACOA are all there to help and to support you. And of course, we're also there. I've left my email address as well as our website address. If we can help, get in touch. There's, as I said, a lot of support and goodwill for the Atlantic Canadian companies. So take advantage of it. And if we can help on anything online, we'd be glad to do so. So with that, I think we're going to sort of round off to next steps. I promised I'd keep this sort of to half an hour, and we're 3 minutes past. So for us, the next steps is, make the internet work for you. Think about how you can do that. Think about your website. Think about your online marketing, how you can increase those things, and check out all the webinars that are dedicated for you. And then get your teams together and think of ways that you can join that and get found internationally. And then don't hesitate to get in touch either with Erin or myself or with any of the support of your freedom provinces. Right, I've kept it to 35 minutes. There is actually one question that's come in, which is I'm seeing, which is, can I make my website e-commerce enabled? The answer is yes, you can, particularly if you tell us in the beginning. Websites, it's not hard to make a website e-commerce enabled or request a quote. I can go from a request a quote to a full Shopify with a gateway. And I will explore that in greater detail in the next webinar about e-commerce. Our webinar on Thursday, next webinar is on online in Latin America. We hope to see you on the next one, and we wish you all the best in trading, in exporting, doing business, and have a great, great time. Thank you very much indeed. Bye, and thank you, Erin, as always, for attending and joining me. Thanks. Bye-bye.